Hey, what's up, Entourage Nation? It's your boy Ryan Stewman here, and I'm glad that you're back. We got another episode. It's going to be a hot one, like always. But first, you must endure my weekly sales pitch. So this week, what I have for you, and you'll see why it's so important, because you'll be like, hey, this kind of came out of left field. Y'all usually ain't pitching stuff like this. But I'd like for you to go to Amazon and check out what's known as the Shamrock Triple Gym. So just go to Amazon, type in Triple Gym, and you can see there it's like, most of those machines that you do the perfect pull-up from, and there's several of them that you can you see on TV infomercials, everything else. The problem that I've had in the past is they damage your wall, right? So especially, like, I weigh 203 pounds. And so, and I can do 30 to 40 pull-ups without stopping. So if I get up there, because I'm in CrossFit, my pull-ups may be different than yours, right?
Right.
But I can get up there, I can get up there and I can kick 30 or 40 times and get up there. And that's like, in a typical home, with sheetrock on the walls, that's going to rip, that's going to damage your 2x4s, it's going to tear up your sheetrock and everything else. And with the Shamrock Triple Gym, what it is, it's not only the perfect pull-up type of machine, it's also a TRX machine, so you can get your push-ups in, your pull-ups and all that other stuff as well from the bottom, and it won't damage your door. They've put it's like really smart people put the balancing system, designed the balancing system in place to where when you put it up there and you lock it, it locks on 4 sides instead of 2, so it equally distributes the weight to where you're not going to damage the door in your extra guest bedroom or the door to your garage or wherever it is that you install this thing. So if you're trying to get in shape this winter, right, because you're going to go eat all that stuff at Thanksgiving, you're going to get all that good stuff at Christmas, and the first of the year, just like you do every single year, you're going to go, dude, I'm fat, I got to get my life together, right? That, that's going to happen, so go ahead and be prepared. Or maybe you know somebody who's a little big boned, right? They could use a little help. Send them the Triple Gym for Christmas and just smile when they open it and tell them you love them. So go to Amazon, type in Triple Gym or Shamrock Triple Gym. It'll pull up. Order it for yourself or a loved one. You'll love it, and it won't damage your door. So welcome to the show, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to keep Pat quiet on this one. So first we have our guest here, Des Woodruff. Des, welcome.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Where do you hail from, sir?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis.
Home of Corn and the Colts.
Yeah.
Corn is in the band? Or?
Hey, don't claim the Colts right now, dude.
Corn,
Don't claim them right now. They're horrible.
Indianapolis, north side.
The stuff you eat. Yeah. There's a picture floating around Instagram right now, and it's Michael Bublé. Have you seen it? And he's eating corn like I don't know, it looks like a dick, right? He's like eating corn like it's the front of it. And they're like, just remember, when you're in a bad mood, Michael Bublé does not know how to eat corn properly.
You just keep away from me. That's all I got to say.
Right. And then we have Mr. UFC Hall of Fame, Ken Shamrock. What's up, man?
Just loving life, one day at a time.
Where'd you show up here from?
I'm not sure. Reno, Nevada. Yeah, that's where I'm from.
You're all over the place, though, right? Traveling man these days.
Yeah, traveling quite a bit, doing a lot of speaking, enjoying life, man.
Yeah. Being interviewed a lot as well, right?
Yeah,
we were just getting interviewed over at the Blaze Studios. Or we weren't. You were. Right. I was spectating, we shall say. So.
Yeah, just having a good time. And like I said, that's just stuff that I'm used to, stuff I enjoy, being able to connect with the fans and just having a good time.
What have you been doing since, obviously you just said speaking a little bit, but what have you been doing the majority of your time since you've left the big spotlight of the octagon?
Well, once I left the octagon, it's almost like you have this adrenaline, right? And you've got this journey that you're on, and you want to accomplish this goal. And once you accomplish that goal, you set another goal. And so that's kind of what I was doing in my life. It was just fast. It was fast. And I was accomplishing all these goals and becoming the champion and, being on TV shows and all these things that go along with being an athlete and a good athlete, a marquee athlete. Once that stops, right, all of a sudden, the journey's over, right? And so I had a choice to make. Is that it? I'm 50-something years old. Is that all I have? And I thought in my head, that's just not who I am. That's not who I want to be. So I thought to myself, you know what? I need to try to create something different. I need to give me some different challenges. And so I started thinking, I need to find somebody that's going to help me rebrand myself, start going in a different direction, go into a different well. And I ended up hooking up with a friend of mine, Des Woodruff. And he's an entrepreneur. He started speaking my language, started saying things that I was thinking that I couldn't really do myself. And so we started talking. Next thing you know, one thing leads to another. We're business partners. We're jumping into great ideas. We got some new stuff coming out. And it's like I'm alive again. I'm rejuvenated again. And like I was when I was fighting, trying to achieve this goal, trying to be the best there ever was. Now I'm in another industry, another world, and I'm trying to do the same in that world. So I have a new life now.
Well, you know what I've noticed just from, we've talked in the past and then, we've been spending today together, is I noticed that you're very goal driven, but I feel like you have a point to prove that you're not your like typical dumb jock. I really do. And I know that you're not. Like you speak well, you carry yourself well, and now your goals set as an entrepreneur and stuff like that. But I think that has been probably a big stumbling block for you too, because people don't expect you to be as sharp and as entrepreneurial as you really are.
Yeah, that's true, and I expect that, right? It's like going into a ring and fighting your first time. You're not going to go fight for a title right away. So, you got to work your way there. And so that's kind of the way I've taken this. I understand there's things I don't know, so I'm not going to try to do something or to try to pretend like something that I'm not. I sit back, I listen a lot, and when I do have something to say, it's usually something that I know what I'm saying. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's wrong, and I'm corrected, but it's a learning experience. You make mistakes as you go. So really, for me, this is an awesome time for me because it's like I'm starting out as a fighter young, and I've got the whole world in front of me. To achieve a goal, a journey. And so here I am in that same position at 53 years old and having an opportunity with the whole world in front of me and being able to try to be the best at this, like the best. I don't want to just be average. So I want to achieve big goals. So it's exciting for me. It's like I'm starting all over again.
And you were telling us the story at lunch about you signed your first contract and it wasn't big enough, and your second contract.
Big then, yeah.
and so that's the way it needs to work in this realm too, right? So that you never get overwhelmed or overworked. So
yeah, it's a process. I think we see it too many times in our sports today. Even in business, you guys probably see it in your business where someone overnight becomes this multimillionaire because he comes up with some idea, and that's a hard beast. I mean, that's a drug that not too many people can handle. You overdose on it.
Yep.
And pretty soon it's engulfed you. And you don't even know who your friends are anymore. You don't know where you belong or who really is there for you. So this process that I'm in, because I experienced what I've experienced, I want to take this thing and even if it does come fast, but I'm going to enjoy and slow it down and to make sure that I'm not jumping too fast into something and making sure that it's not overwhelming me to where once it all comes on, you're like, what happened? So for me, it's about the journey, it's about the process and enjoying it. And if it may come fast, but at the same time, because of what I've already experienced, I know how to understand when things are rolling in fast, even though it's there. It doesn't mean you have to let it all pile up on top of you. You can push it aside and try to take things still slow.
Yeah, that's the fighter's mindset, right? That's the fighter's mindset. It's like you don't got to beat them all up at once. Sometimes you can just step back and assess the situation, and then tackle them one
Well,
at
that
a
just
time.
depends on where you're at.
That's
If you're in a club or a bar, the more to hit, the better.
Did you ever bounce at bars or anything like that in your younger days before you fought? Did you ever do anything like that?
That's what I actually started out doing.
Really?
I was bouncing in bars. I bounced in Hilltop in Reading, and I bounced in Reno with the Premier Club. In fact, this is a story. In Reno, this was back in 90, 89, 90, 91, somewhere around there. There was this football player that came in. I don't want to mention his name, I don't want to embarrass him, but he was a big guy, about 280 pounds. He was a tight end from Brigham Young University. He'd come back to town, come into the club. It was a Wednesday night. Me and one of my buddies were working. He comes in with some bigger guys that played football. One of them was for the Atlanta Falcons, an offensive lineman. They come in, immediately as they walk in, they start a fight. So the big dude, which was the 280 pound from Brigham, has this guy about 190 pounds, and this guy ain't afraid of him. This guy's about 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's in his face, and so he steps up, and just as I get there, he goes, "I'm going to rip your head off." And I spun him around, and I go, "Hey, easy. Let me go buy you a drink." Well, he slaps my hands away, and he says, "I'm going to rip your head off and your neck." And I was like, well, now you got to go. And I was only about 190 pounds then, about 6 foot, 190 pounds. So immediately I just spun behind him, grabbed him, kicked his leg out, pulled him backwards, got him off balance. So 280 pounds, and I'm dragging him out the door. Well, then the other guys start coming at me. Well, then another Ken Shamrock, who was bouncing with me at the time, cut him off and say, "Hey, whoa, easy." So I get him through the doors, throw him on the ground. These guys come out. They're all like, "What's going on?" And so this big dude, they tried to hold him against the wall. He hits one of them, bang. Comes running at me. And it was like slow motion. I mean, this is how I see everything. He's running full speed, and I see it in slow motion. And so as he starts to do, he throws a punch. I roll under, and I hit him. Bam! This is 280 pounds coming forward. I stood him up. spun him around, blood splattered all over the wall, hits the ground, blood goes around his head. They pick him up, cart him off, take him to the hospital. He goes into a coma.
Damn.
He ends up coming out of it. But yeah, so it's been fun times.
This is a dude that spent his whole life colliding and hitting
So I
things,
bounced.
right?
I bounced. I don't know how good of a job I did, but
I bet they were sad to see you go, right?
no.
And their insurance probably got cheaper.
No, they got shut down.
Oh, really?
The club, it was a premier club. They got shut down. And we didn't get shut down in that because Mills Lane was the judge, and he was the boxing.
I remember that
referee,
guy.
Right?
Yeah.
He's from Reno, and he was the actual DA. He called it mutual combat, which was no parties were at fault and no parties were right. So it just got swept. Well, then it went to civil, right? And then the club got shut down, and then I got put in jail. And they told me if I had two choices, you leave town or you go to prison. I looked at him and said, that's one choice.
Yeah.
I was like, that's one choice.
Yeah.
This is before I had any fame at all. So now I live in Reno. So
That's crazy, but you got to watch out. You can't be beating up no Mormon football players, man. That's just bad bargaining chips, you know.
Well, me and him talked the other day, and we said that, there's things that when you're young, that bad publicity is good during those days because they don't have pictures and media like they used to, and it's hearsay, right? So you can always deny it, or they don't have pictures or anything like that. So, but today, being 53 years old, you can't make those mistakes because you will not recover from them.
Cameras are everywhere, man.
Right.
And they're cheap. They cost a lot of money in the 80s. They're just $25 or $30 a piece these days, you know.
Yep.
So how did you two get connected, Des? I know y'all are business partners and you're in this entrepreneurial journey together. So how did y'all get connected?
All right, so Ken has a ministry. He shows up at our church as a speaker on things to fight for, things worth fighting for. And I'm like, whoa, Ken Shamrock showing up, man. So I said, hey, listen, I'll drive him around. I'll get him from A to B, B to C. And they're like, all right, cool, handle that. So anyway, we're in the car, we're driving around, and I'm interested, just like you would be. You're asking questions, and we naturally gravitate towards how do you monetize your fan base?
Yep,
What are different avenues of money streams you have coming in? How are you doing that? So I'm asking these questions, and as we're just driving, he's answering them. We're going down the road. I remember this vividly. We're going to the airport now. By this time, we've had a couple car rides. And we also had a tornado come through, and he came to our house, and he fell asleep on my...
During the tornadoes, I went to sleep.
He went to sleep.
That's the best state of mind to be in, though.
Well, anyway, we're going there, and we're heading to the airport. I'm going to drop him off. I remember him looking out at the cornfields, and he goes, man, I need a guy like you. Just rhetorically, just saying that to himself. And 2 months later, helped him with a website. And he's like, oh, that was good. And then after that, we just started
Well, the
working
one
together.
thing that he said was that really clicked with me because, like I said, I had it in my head that I needed to change. This well was going dry, and I'm hanging around, and I'm too old to be hanging around this crowd. I'm past, but I'm still famous there, so I can still go there every now and then. But I can't make a living there. It's just I'm long in the tooth. So he says to me when I say, well, what do you do when you do this or that? You go, you do this. And I say, well, they pay me $10,000, $50,000, whatever it is, depending on what it is, for an appearance. And I said, then I, go to the next place. And I said, it seems like it's drying up. Like the money's getting less and less. And I says, I need to. And he says, you might think about this. He says, this is an idea. He says, instead of taking the upfront money, most of these places are trying to, get traction, trying to get some viewers, eyes on their products. He says, why, instead of just taking that, why don't you talk to him and say, hey, listen, I'll come in. You don't got to pay me anything. I'll take equity ownership and start making a residual income where it's coming in every month. You're not getting one thing and it dries up and you got to go out and do it again. Now, this thing goes on for however long that business is in business, and you keep advertising for them because, you're going to do it anyways.
Right.
I said, ding, 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 ding. The bell went up. I was like, that's it. And I said, that's it. And that's where we started coming up with some opportunities and ideas and start getting, leveraging my popularity towards equity ownership with companies. We had a lot of them that we got into that were just nightmares. We got tricked on some of them where we were sent, numbers that weren't real. They were padded. and almost got us into some serious trouble. But because of Dez's knowledge and his constant questioning and constant prying to get what we needed, we ended up cracking that egg. And then we were able to get back out of that and dump everything. We had a lot of shares. We dumped them. So, we've experienced a lot in a short period of time that we've been together. I've learned a lot. And so it's been one of those things where you have the idea, you think about the idea, you find somebody that kind of talks your language that you're thinking, because I can't do it, and then you start down that path. But at that time, the work's not over. I mean, you're just beginning to, know each other, to try to gel with each other, to try to move forward and create opportunities together. And you always got people that are telling you things that aren't real. And so after a few of them, then we started thinking, okay, we have to tighten up on this. We've got to ask more questions here. We've got to be more direct here, more aggressive here, so that we're not wasting our time spinning our wheels. Because we spent almost 6 months with this company and a couple other ones that just didn't have what they needed. And every time that we would push for something, it almost like they would veer us into another direction. So we learned a lot during that time to not be pushed or veered in a direction, and be direct. And if we don't get what we need, we walk away.
Yeah. And so the Triple Gym being one of those things that worked out well for you. How did you discover that thing?
Well, it didn't. I mean, that was one of those things where I went in and I got paid a flat rate.
Okay.
And I came in, I modeled the equipment, and I was gone. There was another guy that worked on that. That was that's another issue, and I got rid of him. So they went off and did their thing. But when Dez came on, I told him, hey, I've got all these deals. There's a lot. I have like 6 deals that he had to go back on to check and make sure that what I had signed, that I was getting what I was supposed to. So he did a lot of that. Took him a lot of time, and he came across this thing, and he talked with the guy, met with him, started talking with him, and saying, hey, this thing's 5-star rated. It's doing well. We're selling this. We're selling that. And so we started prying, and he worked out something to where we can really, both of us, him and myself and Dez, could benefit from our work that we put in for him. So that's why when we got involved with this, it was almost a dead one, and we revived it.
That's really cool, man, that you look out for them like that, because most people, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Mr.
Yes.
Shamrock, we're trying to fuck him every chance he gets. Like, oh, Ken, don't know? Sign here,
Yes.
sir. Like the contract
Yep.
we talked about
Yep.
with the racks of money that you got, and you're lucky to have someone that you found that does understand your language, because that's important too, and looks out for you. That's how I feel about Pat. You're lucky to have me, sir.
It takes, it takes a lifetime to find people. Some people are lucky and they find them in their childhood and they grow up together and they're there. But some people who come from some rougher areas, rougher backgrounds, there's not people you can trust. It's just the way you come from. And so as you grow, you start bringing people in. They do well with you for a while, but then they grow. And so then they're not as committed to you anymore. So you got to cut them loose, even though you've been with them for a while. They're just not committed to you, and that's usually when problems start to happen. So I learned that also, where if they're not growing with me and they're growing away from me, I've got to cut them loose, even though they want to stay, but they're not committed. So I've done a lot of that. I've cut a lot of things away. And so having him there, knowing that he's got my back, knowing that he has interest in what we're doing, and that he's in it for the long haul till the end, and that he's got my back, I got his back, that's something that you don't find. It's very, very difficult to find in a lifetime. And when you do find it, you take care of it.
That's cool, man. That's
Something
really cool.
I'll throw in on that. I believe every entrepreneur should be, and as we were talking earlier, I used to be with Rich Dad Poor Dad and the quadrants.
I don't mean to interrupt him too, but if he does screw me, I'll kill him.
Yeah.
That
He
helps.
is the world's most dangerous business partner, ladies and gentlemen.
.com. I need to get that. Well,
But
what's
it's true.
interesting is every entrepreneur or every celebrity, they will retire at some point. The lights do shut off at some point. So what next? What do you do? Well, I think that an agent, it loses their value after that time. The agent isn't nearly as valuable as an entrepreneur would be. And as you know, an entrepreneur, we see vision. We understand concept, and we can bring it to fruition. We can capitalize on
Close it.
opportunity. And that's the sizable difference between the two. One creates opportunities when the other one is just takes a phone call. Oh, okay, and makes a deal. Big difference, right? When the inbound slows down, it's dead. It slows down drastically. So when I came in, I was looking at Ken just as a business idea. And the idea is this. He's famous in MMA, a godfather, legendary, UFC 1, 4-time heavyweight champion. I mean, go on and on.
WWF, mainstream, TV every
WWF.
week.
So he's got that other huge clientele or fan base. So he's got these both. And that's why when we went Spike and we did the 2 fights that we broke records both times, because you were bringing in UFC
and WWF
at our ages, right? And then WWE guys. They were all coming in. But the point here is, and we even created a business, CE3, CE3.co.
Celebrity entrepreneur.
Yep, celebrity entrepreneur. And the 3 stands for there's a third person, and that's our management team. And that company puts together entrepreneurs who aren't self-employed, but they're true business, right? The quadrants,
Right.
They're not self-employed. They're not in the weeds. They're not too busy. They're looking for opportunity. So we put them with
Match them up with
celebrities, big name celebrities that are transitioning.
That's cool. You know, we spoke about this earlier. I've worked with some TV celebrities and some professional athletes over the years as well. And a lot of times you can make somebody more money outside of whatever it is that they're a celebrity in. Like, for example, when I work with the $1 Million Listing guys, they made more money from what we did together than they've still probably made on that show. And that was three or four seasons ago.
Well, isn't that in business though? And I'm learning this because when you look at cell phones and you look at laptops, how much money's made off accessories? So it's almost the same thing where it's like you got the main commodity, but it's all the marketing, all the things that go around it that you can make a lot of money with.
So we call that the hub. So you have like a hub on a wheel. And so like our hub here is Hardcore Closer. That's our blog, that's our consulting. But from that, we have a seminar building. So there's a seminar business. So there's a spoke from that, right? And first we only sold to loan officers, but then we realized that real estate agents played right in our stuff too. So there's another spoke. Then I own an alarm company, yourfreealarm.com, because real estate agents and loan officers are selling people homes all the time. We might as well hook them up with alarms to give to their people. Exactly. And so we just kept creating things that revolved around that main hub that we have. Yep. Absolutely. So before we get into like the normal news story, I got kind of an off the wall question for you. So I'm 38 years old and I do CrossFit and hit the gym and surf and stuff like that. I'm pretty active. I'm nowhere in the shape that you are, obviously, but pretty active and workout. And man, I wake up sore as fuck in the morning, man. What does it feel like? I mean, have you been able to take care of yourself to where you don't wake up and just go, dude, I feel like paralyzed, or how do you make it through that, man?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, especially when it was a fight, it felt like I was like being washed around in a tumbling dryer. You know, it's over and over. You wake up and you go, I don't remember that. I don't remember getting hit there. I don't remember that. But as I'm older and the training that I do, it's more for me. It's more maintenance. I just want to keep what I've got. You know, I want to stay fit. I want to stay looking good. I mean, it's important to me because I have an image and I got fans and stuff like that. I want to keep them happy.
Yep.
So for me, that's what's important. So I only work out 3 days a week, but my workouts are just crazy because what I do is I'll do 7, 8 different exercises on my back or my buys or my chest or my tri, depending on what I do, shoulders. And it's usually over 520 reps that I do. I only do 3 sets, and 3 sets of 20, so it's a total of 60 for each exercise. So when I'm done, I'm usually around 520 reps. The next day, it takes all day because of my age. If I was younger, I might be able to go in there and do something else, but because of my age, I need a whole day to recover. I need to eat, I need to rest, I need to refuel, I need to do all that, and I pay attention to that because it's important if I go in the next day that I have the energy and the excitement to be able to go in and do the workout I need to do. So the eating is important, the resting is important. So I take my everyday life like I did when I was training for a fight in order to stay in shape. It's important during that time, like when you guys come into your job, you sit down like now you're doing this, you got to focus. I do the same thing when I train. I go in there and people think I'm crazy because I attack the machine. I'll walk around and I'll stare at it, you know, because I know that one particular rep that I'm going to do, the 20 I'm going to do, is important. And then when I do it again, that second one is just as important. And so my intensity when I'm in the gym, I don't talk to too many people. I got headsets on, or if I'm working out with somebody, I'm with them, and I'll pace the machine and I'll stare at it like I'm getting ready to knock it out. Then when I get on the machine, I lift. So when I walk out of that, then it's gone. Now I can actually join the world of business or whatever other things I'm doing, and I have the same focus. And I believe that the things I learned in fighting and the things I learned growing up, of getting knocked down, getting back up, focusing, keep going after what I'm going for. Don't let anything knock you down. Don't let anybody tell you you're not going to do it, and do that. And I do that with everything I do in my life, everything I do in my day. I do it with my relationship with my kids. The time to focus with them is that time. When it's time to do business, it's that time. When it's time to train, it's at that time.
Gotcha.
Who stares down their equipment?
Not too many people, man.
He's
I'm
letting it know, I'm
serious.
coming for you. Ronnie Coleman
Yeah.
does that, right?
Yeah.
Ronnie Coleman's like, lightweight.
But if you want the workout, I believe that. If you want the most out of the time you're putting into the
Yep.
gym, instead of just going through the reps, because you're not going to get what you get if you focus on like that and the intensity you put into it, you're going to get what you want out of it. So I don't got to do the 5 reps, and I don't got to be in there for 4 or 5 days a week. I can be in there 3 days a week and still get what I need.
Yeah, that's how I feel about CrossFit. I do
Yeah.
it 3 days a week. It's intense, it's quick, it's an hour. You got a coach that's making sure that you don't skip corners and
Right.
stuff like that. So for that reason, when I go in there tomorrow, I'm going to stare the gym down before I go out.
Get a video of
I'm
that.
coming for you, kettlebell.
Yeah, that's my intensity though. People look at me sometimes, but it's just how I lived my life. It's
They're
like,
looking at you and those arms, and they're like, he's about to break this damn machine. This machine don't stand a chance.
They're not looking at it funny.
Right. All right, so let's switch over to some stuff that we're going to talk about, like some current events. So I saw today on Facebook that the Taliban just released these 2 white people from Canada, and I was telling
From
Pat-
Afghanistan,
From
right?
Afghanistan. I'm sorry, they were Canadian people.
It's like somewhere over there.
Yeah, they were Canadian people, but they were hiking in Afghanistan, and they made a couple of serious mistakes. So, for those of you watching this thinking about spending the summer in Islamabad,
Go camping.
yeah, if you would like to go camping in the what are those mountains that are there, man? Look them up. It's like the Appalachians, right? Isn't that what
Come
they
on,
are?
Google,
Something
man.
like that?
It's on Google. It's got to be true.
What mountains are in Afghanistan? But anyway, so 2 years ago, they've been locked up for a long time. 2 years ago, Pat and I were in the airport, and we're a little hungover. Sometimes you're in the airport early in the morning, a little hungover, leaving wherever you were at. We're probably in Vegas or something like that, and kind of grumpy. And the news is on, and I remember thinking, who in the hell goes hiking in Afghanistan? They took their kids and everything. There's like a family of 4 that just decided
She
to
was
go
7 months pregnant when she
and
went.
pregnant. Isn't that crazy,
So
man?
let me think about this though. Think about this. Do they watch the news? Because
That's what I'm
do
saying.
they know what's going on in the world? That's like saying, yeah, it's cool, man. I know there's a bunch of people out here and they're shooting each other, but I'm still going to walk across the street to the store. It's like, hello,
Man.
chances aren't good.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. That's like going, hey, I think I'm going to go score over in Mexico right now. That's a terrible idea.
Oh yeah, let's go camping in
Yeah,
California
no
right
shit.
now.
Yeah, no shit, man. And so these people put their kids in harm's way. And here's what's there's a couple mistakes they made, and we'll get to that in a minute. But here's some real weird stuff. Like nobody at the airport was like, you sure? Right? Like they don't have any friends, obviously, because if Pat calls me and he's like, hey man, I'm thinking about vacation in Afghanistan, I'm like, bro, I love you. You can't go over there, man. Like, let me look out for you a little bit. Like if he calls his mom and says, Mom, we're taking the kids to Afghanistan, like these people must not have anybody that loves them.
Yeah.
Which might have been why they were trying to find themselves.
Yeah, but see, if he did that, you'd probably say, hey man, you're going to drug rehab.
Right, exactly right. Something's wrong, man. It's like nobody told these people. It's mind-boggling, and to be there for a long time. And then they were like, not only were they like over there, and nobody warned them or anything like that. I didn't even know you could get a flight to Afghanistan, right? But like, so they went there, and then the chick's like rolling around without a headdress on, like it's Canada, like it's just okay not to. Cover your whatever that thing's called that they wear, man.
That's you just right there. You're just asking for trouble. I mean, you're walking in and you're saying, "Hey, we don't care
They
about your
were
rules."
warned
That's
that the
the
area that they were
pot
going.
smoking a cop's face over
Right,
That's,
right.
that's the same thing.
Well, they were warned as they went in, saying this area is highly dangerous. And what's shocking to me is they went there anyway.
And the
With the
kids.
kids,
Yeah,
yes.
the kids. That's what blows me away. It's like, I get it. You want to be stupid. You want to think the world's full of peace and love. Okay, I get it. But the kids, you're bringing them into that situation when they have absolutely no idea what's going on. Yeah, they need some child counseling.
Well, I think those kids should be taken away from them, man. Like, if you're willing to put, like, those kids, like if my, I'm divorced, if my ex-wife took my son to anywhere over there, right? Like, he ain't going to begin with, because there's people that love her, so they'll let her know that's not a good idea.
Right.
But, like, if she did that, she does not deserve to have the kid anymore. That's, like, insane. You put my kid probably the worst situation possibly, and those kids, they are young, so it's game over for them, man. They've seen stuff no child should see. There's no telling what they've done to their mother in front of them and everything else.
Well, she said
you
that.
know the
She said
culture,
that.
right? Do you know the culture there?
Rape culture and all that other stuff, man.
But with kids, they kill them. They don't care. There's no, like, here.
They're like chattel.
It's like an animal. They just
Yep.
kill them. They're just kids that are, the B word, and they'll just kill them.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like here, those poor kids, we send them. No, if something happens to them, those kids are dead.
Wow, that's crazy. And you said that she had mentioned that they.
Well, she said she was defiled in front of her kids.
There ain't no coming back from that, man.
Right.
You know, there really ain't. And it's sad because you want to help the kids. You want to just go ahead and tell them, keep the parents. You know what I'm saying? You want to help the kids. You really do. But it's like, man, that's like I don't know any amount of counseling that can overcome
No, once you
that.
see that, once you're exposed to that, man, it's there forever. It's never going away. You learn how to deal with it as time goes on. You start learning how to deal with those things. When those emotions arise, you know they're coming, so you can learn to deal with them as you get older. They never go away. It's never going to be gone. It's always going to be a part of them. Man,
yeah, for sure. And that's probably some stuff that would be difficult to deal with as an adult, let alone young and not having all that figure out, man. That's some heavy shit.
As young as they are, in the experience that they've seen, it almost sets them up for failure, because what happens is because I've done a lot of the child stuff, I've been through a lot of this stuff, I've seen things happen, and I've been in that world of these things happening to kids. And when they grow up, most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time the kids repeat what they see.
Yeah. Right, yep.
Because they've seen that happen, so now when they get angry or get into something, they've seen it already, so they revert to what their memory is now. Mm-hmm. So now they become abusive in that situation. Even though it was traumatizing to them to see that, you would think it'd be the opposite, like they go, man, I ain't never doing that, was wrong. It's not. It's almost like now it's almost okay now, because they've seen it, they've experienced it, so now when they get angry, they're more susceptible to be violent towards another woman.
Yeah, that's crazy. You're right, though. It's like once humans do, it's the experience thing. Once humans do or experience something, one thing, it becomes easy to repeat it because it's already happened.
It's in your head.
The first time you smoke a cigarette, it's like, I've already smoked a cigarette. First time you drink a beer, it's like, I've already drank a beer. What's another one? You're right. It's it carries all the way down the line that way.
Yeah.
You know what's shocking is, think about the statistics. I think she was over there 12 years or something. They were over there 12 years, I believe. If they're over there 12, what are the odds that they would still be alive at this point?
Wow.
And the second thing is, why were they released now? I can't help but to think it's some of the policies that Trump's bringing in to cause them to want, I don't know. I mean, those are the questions that I have now. Why weren't they killed?
I don't think Trump's doing anything to help anybody right now.
Well, these folks ain't getting Trump's help because they're Canadian. Trump could give, him and Justin Trudeau ain't on good terms right now anyway.
But I just saw some people talking about that. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but they did cite some of the things that the administration now is doing over there. It's causing them to want to be on good behavior.
Well, that's scary too.
Yeah, right. Well, there's just questions that you have, right? Why are they
Wait,
still
don't
alive?
talk about things like that. There's people kneeling in the NFL for Christ's sakes, right? Right, the old magician.
You know what makes me mad about that? I don't care about any of the politics and all the stuff going on. What makes me mad is I'm going to miss my fantasy if they go on strike.
Right, true. Didn't they go on strike a few years ago? Who was there?
That was
the
way. That was
NBA.
That So yeah, that was. I don't think that was anytime soon. But you know, they're talking about they're talking about a bunch of guys walking out if they're forced to do anything.
Man, that would be one high-paying job that you wouldn't finna talk me. So the other day I'm watching the Def Comedy Jam 25-year anniversary. And Russell Simmons, man, this guy's made a lot of people famous over the years, like from rap artists to comedians. I mean, he's done a lot for the community. And Steve Harvey was on there. Now, if you went back to Def Comedy Jam, Steve Harvey's on there, you know, motherfucker this and all that,
Yeah.
right? But he cleaned his act up. You know what I mean? And he cleaned his act up, and you know, he went on to host the Family Feud and have the Steve Harvey show, and now he's like Mr. Distinguished with beautiful white teeth, you know, Steve Harvey, and he has the best teeth ever, man. Those things are perfect. And so he's on there, and they're talking a bunch of, you know, whatever bullshit, right? And they're like, what do you think, Steve? He goes, I think y'all ain't getting me to fall for none of that. He goes, y'all ain't getting none of my money. I worked hard to get where I'm at. I'm not going to say nothing. He goes, the company I work for is owned by Walt Disney. So I ain't saying nothing that ain't kid-friendly on this show, y'all. But
Smart man.
Smart man. Most people won't
right.
say that, though, you know, because we talked about this a few episodes back, but on Instagram, you know, Puff Daddy's telling them to strike, and I'm like, hold up, y'all trying to make money. Puff Daddy's already got money. There's a big difference, right?
Big
It's
difference.
like-
It's always easy to say that when you're already set.
yeah, exactly. Like, these guys are they're still trying to pay for the car they just bought their mom and everything else, you know?
But the peer pressure there is strong.
It
though.
is.
And when you see guys that already have a lot of money, the top players that get guaranteed money, so they're going to make their money, and they step away. They already have a bank account. They're set. It's
Yep.
all those guys underneath. You're talking about probably 80% of the NFL are the guys that don't have that money.
Yep.
The rest of them are set. So it's the top guys are the ones saying that right now. To get those other guys to do that, it's going to be really difficult, because if they miss a month or 2 months, you know, there goes their car the first month, the house the second month,
Yep.
the wife the third month, or the girlfriend, whatever it is. They can't. It's too hard to do that. Back in the day, I could see how they could do that because it was set up differently. Now there's way too much money because of the way that the Shield has set up these contracts to prevent a strike. So they can lose everything on a strike.
Yep. Well, you know, and if you think about it, most of those guys make $200,000-$300,000 a year, you know, and even you see the guys that get the $5 million contracts, that's usually drawn out over a 7 or 8 year period of time and stuff like that. So it sounds big. It's like the $30,000 contract. It sounds like a lot of money right now, but then when you stretch it out, you realize that it's not as much. And, you know, if you're making $20,000 a month, right, and you're, let's say, the backup, right, which is what most of them are, B and C strings. So let's say you're backup, you're making $20,000 a month. If you're in California and you're playing for Los Angeles Rams and you're making even $40,000 a month out there,
ain't making
Uncle
it.
Sam is going to take 25 of that. So then all of a sudden you're sitting on $15,000 in LA. That doesn't even hardly pay rent somewhere.
Nope.
You know, and so I mean, and you think it's a lot of money, and you're like, why don't these guys have money when they get out of the NFL? It's like, well, because the stadium's in downtown LA, and then they got to live in Beverly Hills to be within 2 hours of the stadium, and it costs, you know, $20,000 a month to live in Beverly Hills. Like, if I was to go into the NFL, which I would never be qualified ever at any point in my life, but if I was to ever get a choice to do something like that, while everybody else would want to go to like New York or LA or something like that, I'd be like, send me to Kansas. Whereas does Mississippi have a team?
Where's there's no
It's
taxes?
the cheapest place to live,
Yeah.
where I can just
Cost
stack
of-
all this NFL money up.
Hey, the Las Vegas Raiders, man.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
You know, Sports Illustrated came out with a study a few years ago, and what's shocking is NFL players, after 5 years, they're just like a person that wins the lottery. After 5 years, they're broke. 79% of them are. They're in bankruptcy. 79%, think about that. NBA is 65% that they said, and after 5 years. So it's shocking, isn't it, that it's same thing. It's financial literacy. It's a lack of that. The person that wins the lottery, or the person that wins the lottery being a professional,
Well,
right?
you remember that's how we actually really started with this entrepreneurial CE3 thing that we came up with, was because we saw a Sports Illustrated numbers
Study, yeah.
of the athletes that were going broke, and kind of that's where I was at, whereas I wasn't broke, but man, the well was drying up. I couldn't make that money, so my mind was trying to think, what do I do? How do I do it? I met him, entrepreneur. That's it. So we just want to reduplicate what we did, because there's so many of these guys out there that have big names that are sitting there broke, and that they still have value.
Yep.
So we can take that commodity and that popularity and leverage it for them for some business opportunities to help businesses get eyes on their product. Man, we just redo the same thing we did. So that's kind of how when we got into that was really because we saw an opportunity to actually help these guys, but at the same time create a business that's going to keep these guys being able to make the money they need to make or that they're used to making.
I bet when you started your career as a professional athlete, was there anybody that said, you know, hey Ken, let me look out for you and help you make some wise financial decisions?
Yeah, I remember I had this one guy come up to me, he was an ex-boxer, and I remember this clearly, and he looked at me and he says, hey kid, and I said, hey, how you doing? I remember who he was, and I remember he looked at me and he goes, save your money, kid, and I was like, yeah, of course. He said, no kid, I mean save your money, like you need to invest it, put it into some stocks, do something, man, because you're flowing in it now, you're successful, you're on a ride right now, but it'll come to a stop. And I remember that when I was actually trying to change my direction, you know, because it was drying up and I hadn't done the right investments and I needed to create some other opportunities. And so here I was on this journey to try to find out how I can rebrand myself and go in a different direction. And I remember what he said to me, and it was like I had opportunity with Starbucks that came to me.
I still
The one stop. Gas
Convenience
stations,
stores, yep.
you know, where they were going to put the stores and the restaurant or the fast food, and they were talking about putting my stuff inside some of these stores so they could sell them. And I remember they came to me with these ideas, and first thing when they came with the coffee thing, I was like, what do you mean coffee? You get it free anywhere. You can go in any office, or airport, anywhere they get coffee for free. No flavored coffee. Yeah, you can get that too. Put sugar in it. Like, I didn't get the concept. Like, no, this is flavored coffee. I'd never been over in Paris or anyone drank any of that fancy coffee before. I didn't understand it. I said, it's okay, man, I'll pass. I thought it was a joke. I kind of laughed. Now look at it. Like, same thing with this one-stop shop in gas stations. When they first started coming out, I could have had my merchandise inside those places for people to buy or pick them up or whatever, because they're always buying little things in there. And I passed on that, you know. So listening to somebody like that, who you just is sitting in the corner, you know, ex-boxer, ex-world champion, says something to you as a young fighter, you're like, dude's washed up. You're like, yeah, like he's a little bit out there. You don't think about that, right? You're thinking, wait a minute, stop for a minute. This guy has knowledge.
Right.
He's
The
been there.
experience,
He's done
yeah.
that. He's already been down that road. So what he's saying to me is real to whatever level you want it to be, but it's real. And so, man, I look back on that every time when I'm in different ventures and trying to move forward. That sticks in my mind.
You know, the difference is, so I have a friend who, you know, let's say he made $50,000 a year for, 15 years of his life, and then he quit being a civil servant, and now he's making, $500,000 a year, doing some internet marketing stuff that's it's like an online celebrity thing. And I explained to him too, it's like this thing comes and goes. Being cool online comes and goes. You make one stupid video and everybody forgets about you or gets mad or offended or whatever. It can come and go really quick. And I'm like, you're getting all this money. Let me advise you on what to do with it, right? Because I have that experience. I've been rich, been broke, been broke again, then even been broke. I often say, I'm the kind of guy that goes down to rock bottom with a jackhammer in my hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm that guy, right? I think
I'm going to drill my way back out again.
That's right. The world is round. Eventually, I'll pop out the other side.
We'll keep going until we see light.
And but same thing, like. He never takes me up on the offer, and he knows how I live, and he knows the businesses that I run, and I'm not an Ivy League college educated person. I gained all my experience from the streets and screwing up. You know what I mean? Yep. And just like you guys, and so but that ego, just like hard to listen to that old boxer, is because my friends thinking, this guy's older than me, you know what I mean? He's already come through this phase. He's not really.
He's washed up. He blew it,
Yeah.
It's
he
not
doesn't know like me. He doesn't know it like I know it, you
got to figure, you think, well, I'm right in the middle of my career, right? I'm on top. And so
I'm better than that guy.
Well, you kind of listen to him, and I have enough respect to listen to people, and I did listen to him, but not now. Not now. I mean, right now I'm okay.
Right.
But not now. The end comes real quick after not now.
Right. Not now comes to an abrupt end, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I feel like there needs to be somebody out there. Like, you ever watch Entourage, the TV show Entourage? Right, Vince was lucky and became that top star because he had an Ari Gold behind him. He had somebody that went to work for him and said, you know what, Vinny wasn't really that good of an actor in the show, but he had somebody that was willing to sell him, right? And then if you watch the show, I forget the CPA's name, but every time Vinny would go out and do some stuff, the CPA would call him and go, did you just buy a Rolls Royce? Take it back, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like if other guys had somebody in their life that could advise them like that, then, you know, then there wouldn't be that alarming statistic that you're talking about. I have a Jewish friend, and he's like, they need a rescue Jew. We're really good with math and finances. They need one of us to go in there and assert them, but there's really nobody from Goldman Sachs like standing out in front of the NFL place recruiting players. And if they do, what they try to do is what we were talking about earlier, is they try to get them to lose all their money so that the house wins. It's almost like a casino.
Well, they have
you know?
more control over them too. The more broke they get, the more they need to play, and the more they don't have to pay them. They could pay them lower because they got to take it.
Yeah.
But speaking on Entourage, there's also a hidden trap that I don't think people see in there, right? The biggest thing that happens to celebrities or athletes is their entourage. You have 7, 8, 10, 12 guys that just hang on, and everywhere you go, you're buying them dinner, you're buying them drinks, you're paying for everything all the time. And if you watch the show, it never speaks on the entourage. It never says that's a bad thing. It's a cool thing to have all those guys living with you. It's a cool thing to have those guys all taking your money and spending it. But if you look at it, that's the biggest downfall. I mean, I had 20, 30 people with me because I had the fighters, I had fighter houses, everything. So it was costing me a lot of money every month to keep those guys up and running. When you look at the show, you're going, hey man, that right there itself, you're making that look like that's good and it's okay. It's not. That is the biggest problem with guys who are starting to make money, is all the aunts and uncles and all these other people come in, and they all of a sudden they're your family. And then you have all your friends coming around. Pretty soon you got 20, 30 people hanging around. Every time you go somewhere, it's a $20,000 bill.
Yeah. It's expensive.
So you watch Entourage, that's exactly what that is. It's basically saying, oh, it's cool to have an entourage. This is what makes everything happen. And it's not. That there is a pitfall.
That's what broke MC Hammer.
Right.
Remember, he had like 50 people that he called him the posse. Remember? And they
Tyson's
were like,
the same way.
Tyson's
Mike Tyson.
the same way.
Yeah.
You know, you're right about that. And people don't realize, like, $20 for me to go eat downstairs, $20, no big deal. But if you got to take 30 people with you, man, that is a
Three meals a day.
big ass bill, man. It's
Every
$1,000
day,
every
right?
time, 3 meals a day, you know? And I mean, even when I take Travis and Alex and Pat on the road with me, we do events. Travis does sales, Alex records the whole thing, and then Pat does all of our technical stuff if we need it, you know. And dude, it's a lot, you know. Every what would be $20 for me is now $100 for all
Yeah, but
of
that's
us,
a tax
you know?
now because they're working. That you can actually write that off though. So
True,
it's
yeah, they're
different
not
than
just
just
my
hanging
homies.
entourage,
Yeah.
hanging around, and you're just paying for it.
That's
You know,
true.
you can't write that off.
Yeah, and in that show, you know, nobody pulls their weight either. You know, until like the last season, they all start to finally pull their weight.
And it never works that way, brother.
Yeah, they never pull their weight in real life, right?
No.
I know. I remember the first time that I got money. It was 2005. I made $700,000 in a year slinging mortgages, and all my old friends showed up. You know, and everybody and everywhere I went was like, I had to get, I ain't got money, man.
Aunts,
I thought you had us
uncles, you're like,
covered.
what?
Yeah. Well, when I was at the UFC fights earlier this year at American Airlines, I was there with 2 of the fighters, and they were up and comers, right? This was their second time to appear in the UFC, and they still weren't on TV, so they didn't make it TV. They were the undercard for the night, and I sat in their section because they gave me seats, right? They gave me free tickets to go, and man, there was cousins and aunts, and I'm talkative, but you know, if you guys couldn't tell, I'm like a friendly, talkative guy. So I'm like, and I know they're from, let's just say Mississippi, right? I know they're from Mississippi, and I'm like, where are you guys from? They're like, oh man, you know, we're from Oregon. We hadn't seen Billy in 15 years. We heard he was fighting here. It's like, boy, y'all smell money from all the way from Oregon. They got that trip all the way from Oregon, man.
Yeah, they're probably not even cousins. They're probably just
Right.
friends, and they say they're cousins.
Like, what is that, the water boy when his dad shows up at the end, you know, he's like, it's like he's been gone all this time, and now all of a sudden he's a kicker for college. His dad's his best friend again. Man.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the sad thing, is we live in a world where it is hard to trust somebody, because oftentimes, especially guys like us, the people that we think we can trust the most are usually the ones that burn us the worst. You know, like whether it be your family or your good friend. I've experienced being burned by both of them, and those are the, like, especially like, you know, in your situation, my situation is a lot alike. My family didn't have money. And so, like, when I started making money, I take advice from my family because they give me life advice on everything else. And they both worked W-2 jobs and had no clue about anything like this. And, you know, my dad's advice was like, well, don't invest in anything and just hold on to as much as you can. Yeah,
yeah.
It's a terrible
Put it in the
idea.
bank.
Yeah.
Hold on to it. Like, wait a minute. Have you ever heard of investments?
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And you can't write holding it in the bank off or anything, you know. So,
Yeah.
but they didn't know, you know what I mean? Because that's what they did when they made $40,000 a year and they had any extra money. They just held on to it for an emergency because they didn't have the ability to have any kind of surplus. You
But
know,
where,
so-
with the era they grew up in, because you can understand that the mentality is a lot of times things would crash on people. I mean, it wasn't as solid as it is
Yep.
today.
Gold,
So-
silver, all that shit.
Yeah,
crashed
so
on.
it's like, don't take chances with your money because you can't recover from it.
That's
I mean,
true.
you lose that, it's not like you can go and make that up because it took them 40 years to get it.
Yep.
So trying to make that kind of money again, man, I mean, people are just scared to death to lose that money because it took them so long to build it up. They ain't going to go put it into something that may or may not lose their money. There's a chance, right? Even though it's a small chance. Most people aren't going to do that. They're too afraid of that. And then the second thing is when you get to that level and you start becoming that famous person, this is what I've found. I've found that you have family members from everywhere, right? I've had family members because I was adopted, so a lot of them found out my real name, and all of a sudden they started coming around, and pretty soon, even people that the people that you would not think would be like that, when it comes to money, when it comes to a lot of money, they almost feel like they're entitled to have some of it because they've been with you,
Yeah. Or that
because
they
they
just
were
know you.
around you,
Yeah.
or because they've been related to you, that now they feel like they have an access to come to you and ask you for money. And it's like you get to a point, you're like, yeah, no. And then all of a sudden, they hate you.
Yeah, they hate you. Even
It's like-
worse, yeah.
You're like, how does that work, right?
No.
I mean, how exactly does that work? Because I earned this money. You're coming to me, and I rarely know you, or you're coming to me, and you've grown up with me. You've been around me the whole time. But now, because of this, you feel like now I got to give you money. It's like, I don't understand that. Explain that. Now, if I want to give it to you, or if I want to put in a Christmas card or something like that, well, then that would be my determination. But then all of a sudden, when you say no, all of a sudden, you've made enemies
An enemy,
with the family,
yep.
and you're like, how does that work?
And then you say no to a couple of them, they pair up together. and
Yeah,
stuff,
you're
you
like,
know?
this guy, he
Yeah.
thinks he's big, he's full of himself, you know, he thinks he's a celebrity. All these things are starting to be said about you, and all you did was say no.
Right. You know, I ran into a guy I knew from high school a couple months back. He was working on a motorcycle that I had, and he was working at the Yamaha shop. And I was like, hey, man, good to see you. You know, what have you been up to? And he's like, well, my brother just invented this like crazy contraption that they use in prison systems and got like $300 million. It's the company project got bought up for like $300 million, and like his portion of it was like 15 million cash, right? And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So what are you going to do? He's like, oh, dude, I'm about to quit. My brother just got paid. And I'm sitting here thinking, what the fuck does that got to do with you? You know, like, who cares if you got 150 million? Like, what is that? How are you entitled to any of that? Like, just change my damn oil on my motorcycle.
First of all, why would you, I mean, even if you have that money, do you just stop living? I mean, do you stop? Like, I'm not going to work no more. I'm just going to sit around and
You and I
drink
both
beer.
know that's not how it works. Right.
No,
You try to
it's
find
like-
more.
Yeah. It's those people that have been successful, the people that have strived to get there, especially coming from really zero, right? And you've been kicked and punched and crapped on, and you come to the top, you rise to the top. Those people with that kind of drive never stop. Even when they make it, they find something else to do because that's who they are. That's how they got to where they're at. And to just go, okay, I'm done. It's like the thing that you see with athletes that completely boggles me. It just means to me that they weren't a true athlete. They weren't really at heart a true athlete. They just were naturally good at it, right? Is the ones that get to a point and they, even if they've been into the Hall of Fame and they broke records or whatever, and then once their career is over, they sit on the couch. right? And they get overweight, and they usually die early. They usually die of a heart attack or diabetes or whatever it is, because they just stopped being an athlete. They figured, well, I did all that, so I'm done. And they sit on the couch and they don't do anything. Like, they've got the money, they put it away, they're set, and then they stop. And then they die. And to me, the ones that have, the true ones, the ones that have gone from ground, worked through all the crap, got to where they wanted to be, made it, and then found something else to strive to me are the ones that are the true athletes, or the true ones that have desire to be something. Because just because you make it here doesn't mean the world is over. Doesn't mean that you've made it. When you die, and you die on your feet by doing other things, that's when I think that you've made it. That's when I think that you've done everything you can in life, and you don't quit on it.
Me too. You know, there's this thing. You know, at first I was like, when I ran into you this morning, we've been speaking, and I can see stuff online, but I have a lot of ex-athletes that have given up, right? That were like, at one point, it's like, you know, when you walk out in the ring, you're built like a freaking god. You know what I mean? You're like ripped in arms, and then you run into them later on down the road, and you're like, dude, just like you look like me. Like, this ain't right. And when I saw you, I was like, oh yeah, Ken still got it. That's what I'm talking about, right? But there's this thing that I talk about a lot in my speeches, and it's called the force of average. And so I know you're a minister and you're a religious person. I'm not a religious person, but I believe.
Not yet.
And right. And I believe until the right moment, I guess, right? And I believe that, like, you can say God or whatever it is, but there is because we're in the computer world, I look at it as somebody coded this planet, whether it's a divine creature. It's definitely not a big bang that just happened, right? So there's this, that God coded it. In the Bible, they say he spoke it, right? But I'm just going to say that whoever coded it. But they coded this planet on an average, just like when you code a computer program, you don't code it extraordinarily and dynamic. You code the computer program for the average and for the masses, right? To be able to understand. You don't code a program for only the elite. So the way that this world is coded is on this force of average. What happens is a guy like you, for example, you hit rock stardom and you make millions of dollars and you go and you win the belts and all this stuff. The force of average is coming against you because you're fucking up the grading curve, Ken. Right. You know, and so what happens is that you have a guy that's an elite athlete, and then he peaks, and so that peak was, you know, meteoric rise. And then when he's done with that peak, because the force of average is going to take him down, I say rocket ships and submarines, you know? And then what happens is they were in peak physical shape, and now all of a sudden they're in horrible physical shape with diabetes. And that's one of the reasons a lot of athletes go broke too, because they lose their self-esteem, because that was their peak. They let the force of average, because here's what and this is why, and here's what we've been lied to our entire lives on, is from the moment that we're born, our parents start telling us these stories that are bullshit that say happily ever after at the end, right? And then, you know, Snow White blew all the dwarves and they, you know, lived in this like orgy house happily ever after, right?
That's a different spin.
So, but I mean, that's what we go watch the movies and it's like, oh, you know, they killed the bad guy and things must be awesome for the rest. That's the assumption that like everything's perfect from this moment on. And that never happens in anybody's life, right? Eventually the lights in the stadium go off. Eventually the lights in the internet studio go off, because who's to say that virtual reality won't replace this one day or whatever the case. And that's that force of average causing you.
I call
to be
that
normal.
constant change. That force of average and that negativity that constantly keeps you fighting. It constantly keeps you having to fight for something else. If you don't, you're going to go down, right? You will go down. And so that's when we talk about when you reach your peak, you haven't. I mean, you've reached this journey that you set and you made it, but it doesn't stop there, because if you do, when you stop, you die.
You go down. Yeah, when you stop, you go down.
So you have to constantly keep recreating or rebranding or redirecting whatever it is that you're doing for a different goal. If you don't, you're going to go down. And as you say, living happily ever after, it ain't happening. If you keep yourself fighting for something bigger and better or even different, then that happiness stays with you, because now you have something to work for. When you don't have anything to look forward to or work for, then it just becomes what? Boring. It becomes boring. It becomes unhappy. You become depressed. You stop eating right, and all of a sudden you crash.
Yep. Well, you know, we look for this happily ever after thing that doesn't exist, and then we're blindsided by the struggle. right? The struggle shows up, which is always there. The struggle is the number one tool of the force of average.
The happiness, though.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
That's true.
The struggle
That's true.
is when you're struggling for something and you're trying to achieve something. That is the happiness. It's when you stop trying to achieve something or struggle for something is when you become depressed or bored. I believe that. I think as long as you have a direction, as long as you have something to fight for, you can be happy.
You probably felt more fulfilled, and correct me if I'm wrong, but fighting your way up to the belt versus defending the belt, right? That's how we feel about business. I know the grind to get here was like, dude, we were just like, we were living on the edge, doing crazy shit, taking risks with our lives and everything else. And like, there's no way we would do that shit right now, you know?
Well, and
that thrill will never happen again.
Yeah, but it's like this. It's almost a different thing. When you're reaching for that belt, I mean, you've got everything to get to it, right?
Hungry.
But once you get that belt, you want to keep that edge. How do you keep the edge once you've reached that? Okay, so now you've captured that belt. But in your mind, you got to say, okay, I want to be the greatest ever. I want to defend this belt 6 times because the last guy did it 5 times. So you redirect your journey that you just accomplished, and now you change it to something else. But if most people don't do that, and they lose, right? Because they've accomplished it, and so now it's almost like, what am I training for? What am I working for? I already achieved it. And the next guy I fight is going to do the same thing. But if you change that thought process and go, I can't lose. Because if I lose, then I'm not as good as the guy that won it before me or the guy that I just beat because he had it 6 times. Or maybe it was the guy before that. Whatever it was, you now direct yourself towards something that is bigger than what you've already done.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I bet a lot of people, once they hit the goal, they don't know how to reassess their goals. They're like, oh shit, does not compute, shut it down.
It's like, I'm here, I'm
that's
great.
it.
And then the next day, it's that big, flat letdown. You're like,
man, I know that feeling.
yeah, so what do? You get back in the gym, right? You get back in the gym, you start training because you don't want to sit there and be flat because that's when you start drinking, that's when you start doing stupid things because you got nothing to do with your time and you want to do something with your time. So I've always told guys when they get in there right after they're done, whether it was a win or a loss, get in the gym. Don't have to work hard, but get in the gym because that takes your mind off of relaxing. It takes your mind off of being content because when you get content, you get bored. When you get bored, you start doing stupid things.
That's it. I got asked, it's like, so what are you going to do after $1 million a month? I'm like, go to work the next day.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Try to get 2.
Make $2 million.
That's right, try to get 2. So you have to. If not, then you'll because if you decide to stay the same, you never stay the same because the same is always that force of average pulling you down, right? The same is attrition, right? The same is never the same. It's never the same because you lose track of your baseline. You know, it's like that thing we were talking about earlier with kids, like those experiences become normal and it's just like slower and slower because, you know, the athlete doesn't, you know, the lights go off in the stadium and rip 6-pack, huge abs, huge arms, and then go sit on the couch and wake up the next day fat and out of shape with diabetes, right? That's like that same has just continually been gradual.
And you set the bar so high. You've mentioned this about setting the bar so high that when you finally get done and you don't redirect that you get depressed because how can you be happy when you've been up here and now they've taken that away from you and said now you're average. You're going to go, even no matter how much money you have, because money doesn't make you happy. It's your direction in your life that makes you happy. So once that's gone, it's depression. And these people because how do you stay happy after all that? Yeah. Like, I mean, you were a fast lane. You were like, wham, and then you were up here and you're still fast lane. Then all of a sudden you get too old, they pull it away. Now what? You know it's going to drop. So you need to take your mind, you need to start figuring out something else that's going to take that spot. Nothing will ever fill that. It just won't. Maybe 10 million or $1 billion might do it, but but nothing ever really fills that spot of the journey that you take from training, the journey you take going into the ring with a group of people, and then winning, and the ecstasy of winning. But you know what the worst part is? The next day.
The next day.
Next day when there's no direction. And you've had that for 3 months. And you're building up to that. And it's gone the next day. It's lonely. So that's why when I talk to fighters and they're into going into a big fight and stuff like that, you try to get them, maybe give them a day or 2 off because they can go on vacation, do something exciting. But you got to get them back in there because it's that letdown and that depression because there's no direction now. It's usually when they start getting in trouble.
Man, that is so true. In the sales world, you top producer, and on August 31st and September 1st, man, you're depressed because now your numbers are back at 0. you know, and you're starting all over. We come off record weeks and record days, and then we have one off day, and I wake up in the morning and I'm like, shit, I'm mad at the world and everything else. It's like, dude, we've been on like a 3-month winning streak, and we have one day, but you're right. It's like the next day, it's like
It's gone.
after you break a record, if you're not breaking again, and in the fighting world, you can't just go out and win another belt the next day. That's not how it works. There's 6 months preparation and all this other stuff, fighting commission. But in the sales world, it's like, you go and you have a great month or a great day or whatever, and the next day it's like you got to start all over again, and it can be depressing, especially if you have one day where you make 20 grand, and then the next day, and you do that for like 4 or 5 days, and you're like, dude, we're on top of the world, everything's clicking, and then you have a $2,000 day, and you're like, dude, we suck
Kicking puppies.
again, man.
It's like, and for a fact, even though in your mind, especially as you're a veteran getting down the road, you're going to have your up days and your down days, man. And it's like he said, the nutrition going through the process. You got to be able to work your way through those times, because if you do, then the uptime is coming, and you've already prepared yourself through those hard times. When that uptime comes, you're already working, and so you're going to get the maximum out of that uptime because you worked through the hard time, and then now it's popping.
Yep.
A person, I think, especially when they get to the end of their career, whoever reinvents themselves the best wins. But most individuals, they failed to reinvent themselves. They failed to do that. Man, you'll see Michael Jackson did it great, Madonna. You go on and on with all different celebrities.
Jordan's done it great.
Right.
Jordan.
He was an aggressive asshole on the court, but now he's the nice Haynes guy.
Right. But if you can reinvent yourself, but the question is, why do people fail to reinvent themselves? And it goes back to something you were saying a little while ago. Especially the people that went through World War II. They saw the Depression, they saw that. Now they're wanting to bury their money, right? Because they know what can happen. Bad things happen when the market crashes. So they're burying their money. So we get it now why people want to do that today. But the problem is they didn't reinvent their thinking. When the opportunity is before them, they need to capitalize on that.
That's education, though.
Well, check this out. I think is number two. I think number one is fear.
Right.
That keeps people from reinventing themselves because of the fear of the unknown, how to do it, what to do. But the education, I think, is right there too. People fail. I mean, think about how many people you work with your business. They fail to buy education. Why? Because of fear, and because they had no desire, or they don't feel like there's value in education to get to the next level, that it can't do it for them. And education is the very thing that they need to take the next steps.
And you talk about fear with education, right? The scariest thing, and not for me, I don't know why, I just don't know why. I don't have fear of failure. Probably because of the stuff I did when I was younger. I fell down lots of times. Like people tell me I'd fail, and I did, but I got up and went at it again. Is the idea that when someone goes, you know what, I'm going to go back to college, they're 50 years old. That's to them, that's fearful. Because now they got to walk in from all these people, listen to people talk behind their breath about, they got to go into a classroom where she's double their age or triple their age, and then she's got to sit and relearn everything and may not get it, may not pass. And she put all that time into it at her age. Is it a waste, right? So the fear to get somebody, either myself, like an athlete who is coming from the fight world, trying to learn the business world, of looking like ignorant or stupid or whatever it is when they're trying to come out, which is more fear than reality. To be able to come out and actually do that, that's absolute truth. It is a fearful move because you've been great at something. People look up to you. They all awe of you. They want your autograph. And then you come into a situation where you're ignorant compared to everybody else. And then have to sit back and go, I'm going to learn, I'm going to get educated. And to the person sitting in that seat, that's a scary position to be in because you've never had to rely on anybody else. You've never had to learn from anybody else, because at least for a long time, because you're on top of the world. Now all of a sudden your world's completely changed, and you're in this room, and they're all saying, "Oh, what happened to him? Why he's here?" All these things are being said because you want to do something bigger, right? But in most cases, when people try to do that, maybe they're broke. Who knows? Right? So there's all this fear when these people come out, celebrities come out, or anybody comes out, wants to change or reinvent themselves. They have to admit that I'm a beginner, that I'm just starting out and I have to learn from you.
Yep. My grandfather was in Vietnam, and in the Air Force, no, in the Navy, and he flew planes that were like reconnaissance planes through Vietnam, and in the 80s, he from the 70s to 80s, he owned a bunch of S&L banks, savings and loans. Obviously, we know in the 80s what happened to savings and loans banks. They all crashed, right? And so he got basically ran out of town with like pitchforks and shit like that, right? Yeah, no shit, right? Because all those crashed, and he lost a lot of the he owned like 5 or 6 banks, and bankrupt. Hell, my grandma ended up going to federal prison because she was cooking the books trying to save it for the people that lived in the local town. And so the feds, like, she helped out some of our friends in the neighborhood, and the feds got on to us for her for that. She had to go do like 6 months in federal prison or whatever, and they lost it all. I mean, they went from living high on the horse, rich, Learjets in the runway, pink poodles on the diving board, all that shit, to living in a trailer home in the middle of this like town with 300 people in it in Texas where nobody could find them. Yeah, right, where nobody could find them. Well, they moved where there was only 300, so even if, but
Cracks me up, man.
he went to Tarleton State University, and so he was in Vietnam, and so this happened in the 80s, so that would mean that he was probably 40 about this time, maybe 50, but the GI Bill was passed while he was in the Navy, and he'd never done anything with it, and so he decided to go back, and he went to Tarleton State University and got his master's on the government's dime because he was in the Navy. Then he went to A&M and got his PhD, again on the Navy's dime. But he would tell me too, he's like, it's one thing to do this homework and everything else, it's other to go into a room, me being 50 and they being 20.
Right.
And I don't talk to any of them because they're talking about what party they went to last night. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about how I lost my business in the 80s.
It's like,
so,
they're asking, how old are you?
yeah, exactly. Are you our teacher? Right. In order to become to get a master's or to get a PhD, you have to teach classes in the college. And I remember him telling me one time, he's like, life is so much better now that I'm actually the teacher, because when they ask, I'm like, yes.
Right. Well, nowadays too, it's easier to a point because you can do a lot of it online. But if you're anything that takes like on hands, like in the medical field, or where you've got to go and actually have a hands-on in the job, or what do they call that?
Residency.
Residency,
Yes,
right?
sir.
That's where it gets tough, because now you got to be in front of people. But they have made it easier for older people actually to go to college and actually get their classes done online.
Right, yeah, like University of Phoenix type stuff. Yeah, that didn't exist back then. So, well, last thing I'll bring up, and I see a bunch of ways that we can cover this, but I was reading today that France says that in 2030, now mind you, that's only 12 years from now, because 2017 is almost over with, so that's like just a little over a decade. Then they signed a bill today where they outlaw gas-powered cars by 2030.
Whoa, I didn't hear that.
Which one is this one?
France. So this is a couple of things, like the technology.
It's there.
Is there. Well, I mean, Tesla, it exists, right? And
right.
then we've got Prius and all these other things that exist. And that's a bold stance on, like, hey, we're cutting you off, Middle East, if you think about it. You know what I mean? Because those are the ones that we have all the oil, but we don't sell it to anybody.
Right. But think about this, though. I mean, think about this for a minute, though. How much have I've seen so many different stories, and I've seen documentaries on the actual electric car 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, they actually had the capability of doing this.
They
and
assassinated
then Ford
those
came
people,
in and
though.
assassinated them. They came in, chopped all the cars up,
Yeah.
and took all the diagrams, and they burned them. I mean, they've been trying to keep this out for a while. If that hadn't have happened, we'd already be there.
Yeah. Yeah, when the Mongolians and the Persians and all these people from, previous centuries that have ruled the world, when they would go and take over another culture, that's the first thing they do is they burn all their books. And they would
didn't
erase
exist.
they would erase their history. Like, what if those people put some good shit in those books you
Right.
just burned, right?
Right.
Did you read them first? Or did you just assume they were all black magic?
I hate them. I hate them. Kill them all.
Right.
Burn it all.
There's like the answer on how to solve like the world's problems. They're like, it's voodoo.
What about cancer? Maybe they had something there for cancer.
Jeez, man. But that's what they were doing. So I think about, like, and I know this is like a long shot, but think of how far we would be as humans if it weren't for a few assholes over the last few centuries. If it weren't for just a select few assholes either, then we would be so much further. Think of maybe the innocent children that might have been killed in different wars and conquests that could have went on to lead some kind of, cure cancer or cure AIDS, but instead we decided to bomb them
Kill 'em.
in Hiroshima or some
Right.
shit like that, you know?
That's so true.
It's crazy the amount of stuff, but if you also think about it, if France is willing, now we know that Obama a few years ago, so I got this Maserati Ghibli, and so last year, I always lease cars. And so last year, I've been leasing Infinitis for forever, and I had this neighbor that had all these Lambos and McLarens and stuff, and I'm like, trying to keep up with the Joneses, so I go and I lease this Maserati, and I lease a Porsche for my wife. And so both of them have this thing that, like, Obama passed this law to where if the car doesn't idle, right, so like you pull up to the stop sign, the car just dies, it doesn't idle, right? So I buy this $90,000 car, and I pull up to the gate at my apartment complex, and I'm sitting there and it's like, because it's a Maserati, it's all sounding bad. She goes, and I ain't even been driving this shit 30 minutes. And I had it delivered to me, so like I didn't meet a salesman for them to go through everything, and I'm like, oh shit, this car just died. And you know, you always hear people, it's like, I bought this expensive car and it was a piece of crap, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be one of these guys.
Here I am.
And so I just cranked the car back up and like act like it didn't happen and like drive off or whatever, right? Like maybe it's a fluke or something that I didn't do right. Well, so the next day I borrow the wife's car because it's brand new too. I got both of them within a day apart of each other. So the next couple of days I take her car and it dies at the gate too, and I'm like,
It's me.
so I call her and I was like, has your car died
Stop
on you
driving.
before? And she's like, oh yeah, it has. And she said whatever the name of it is, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, well that makes me feel a lot better. And
I
then
feel
realized-
stupid. You made you feel better?
Yes, it made me feel a lot better. And so, and what's funny is my wife is like the car person, so she like
That's
knows all the
funny.
cool car stuff, and I'm
Right.
not, right?
She's doing the oil.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Isn't that funny how we take things differently? You said you found it better, and I thought you found it stupid.
Right. And so I look it up to figure out why the hell they would do that in the first place. Because when you take your foot off the brake, it's like a golf cart, and then it just goes again.
Rises up.
And it's so weird. But Obama passed a law on imported cars that they had to do that. Well, obviously they're imported from Europe, so that they had to do that. There had to be. That was the car companies. It's way of saving gas. So instead of saying we could just switch to solar because that shit works, Teslas are fast as hell. Instead, they said, we'll just make it to where the engine dies. But I started thinking that's brilliant because how many times am I going to have to replace a starter in this thing? Because instead of starting it once, I'm starting it every time I stop on the thing, you know? And but so now that was the first line of technology, and now I see that France must know something's coming because Obama said by 2023, I believe it was, that we had to be 32 miles to the gallon, and this was the engine dying is one of the ways to get there. It was like 30 miles to the gallon, or the car couldn't pass production. It was something ridiculous that you're like 30 miles to the gallon. What the hell am I gonna do with my truck? That thing we drove here in today ain't gonna work like that. But it's coming, and so apparently France is too. And it's amazing to think that when they put the pressure on these companies like that, then all of a sudden they can't snuff Ken Shamrock, the guy that found the engine that runs on water anymore. They're like, oh shit, can you get us to 30 gallons of gas with some water?
Yeah.
Right, they need your help. And so I think that's what France is doing too. But it's amazing to see technology. You know, if you look at a Tesla, it's like a very tiny portion of that car that's the actual motor and all of that stuff. Like even if you look at the McLaren I'm in, it's a very tiny portion of that car because of all the electronic stuff that makes it do what it is. And it's crazy to see how technology's going. I think that here in the next 10 years that we won't own cars anymore and we won't have garages in our homes. Like what'll be the popular trend will be garage renovations into extra bedrooms and stuff, because if cars are driving themselves, and I just saw yesterday that GM just like put another like $100 million into the driving program, right? If cars are going to drive themselves, and you're going to have your wrist top or your phone or whatever that you're using technology, and you're going to, let's say you have a rideshare program, so Uber, now all of a sudden you're Uber Platinum, which is $500 a month, unlimited rides. So you're going to hail that car, it's going to come to your house. You're not going to park it in your garage. It's going to be stored on the street or whatever. And if cars are on the street, it won't matter because they drive themselves, so it won't block anything. And if they need to move for another car, then the car just starts up and moves. So that'll really change the way that we live because you won't be parking cars in your. And Elon Musk says that the only people that will drive in the next 15 years are people that want to drive like a McLaren or a Lamborghini, and they'll have to have a special license and probably have to carry that somewhere to drive it. Like there will be designated humans can drive here. spots, probably where all the traffic and accidents will be.
Well, when you
Right?
said that about those cars that just drive themselves, I saw a commercial with LeBron James. Did you see that one yet? He gets
Look it
into
up.
a car, he brings his friend out, his friend brings him out, two friends bring him out, puts him in a car, but the car looks normal. And he's like, what's this? He goes, just get in it. So he gets in, he says, get in the back seat. There's no driver. He looks in, he says, there's nobody driving. He says, just get in. So LeBron gets in, he closes the door, and the car takes him around the block and brings him back. And LeBron's
Around the
going,
block.
yes. Gets out, says, I'm keeping it. LeBron says this. This is a commercial. This is the first time I've ever seen an actual car that would just drive. You've seen him park, you've seen it, but not just go and drive around the block and pull in where he had been actually put in. And then he got out and said, I'm keeping it. And it's just a normal looking car. It's not a fancy car.
Right.
And that's why when he first saw it, he goes, what's this? He goes, just get in the back. And he's like, there's no driver. He says, just get in. And
Well, think of how they would have to change. Like what we know as normal-looking cars will be useless. We'll need what looks like a stagecoach, right? Because you'll want to get in and you'll want to have a seat that you can relax on. You won't need a front seat
Right.
or all a front and back seat. You'll just get in there and it'll be like a couch in the back basic
coming.
setting to where it's coming.
It's
Yeah, it'll
coming.
redesign
Well,
how cars
Ken,
are.
We were at breakfast this morning, and I said, mark my words, just a matter of time before we're all electric.
Right.
And the autonomy of these cars driving themselves are on an exponential move to the upside as far as technology is concerned. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And mark my words on this. As you guys know, I follow the markets. I'm in the stock market, and I do that religiously on a daily basis. There's a technology out there, graphene. Have you heard of it? Graphene. So everybody watching this right now, go Google graphene. So it's a graphite material, and it's the hardest material that's out there right now. It's lighter, and it's a superconductive. So to give you an example, they say if you get one little micro thin sheet of this graphene, it would take an elephant sitting on a pencil to poke through it. So it's stronger than diamond. Every window that we have right now, every flat surface we have will be at one point graphene. And it will be able to be solar. So every building that we have, our cars, will take electricity right from the sun because of the graphene. But it will be used for ballistics protection. It'll be for just everything. But it's super light, very thin.
Thin.
What you will find is with these cars that the problem that they have with them right now is the batteries, right? They need the batteries to perform better. And we're going that direction. Graphene will be a key component in tomorrow's batteries. What we're going to find is not only will graphene be in the batteries to help them get more mileage, you're going to find graphene as being the material that builds the shells of these vehicles. So you got better protection, lighter, gives you even more mileage. So anyway, you're welcome. Go invest.
yeah. Definitely had to do with stocks.
And they, Elon Musk was talking about these charging stations they have that you'll be able to pay and it'll be able to fill your car up faster. Like you can sit there and plug in and still take an hour to charge it or whatever, or you can pay money and it just
Yeah,
takes
this
a
is the
couple
one right
minutes.
here. It drives up by itself.
A Kia, some sort.
He doesn't like the car. He's like, what is this?
What's funny is my cars park themselves and I'm scared to death to push that button.
Look at, he just drives him around the block. I was like, I can't believe I just saw that.
Keep it.
Wow.
Intel. All right, so that's an ad for Intel running that stuff. There you go. They're all
Yeah,
getting
but-
in bed
but-
together, man.
But that car did do what it did,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It drove by itself.
That's like I said, you can push a button on my Escalade and on my Maserati, and they park themselves. I have never been
Parallel
scared.
park?
Yeah, scared
Yeah.
to death to push that button because I'm like, I don't know.
Just
I
that
don't know.
one
These are a
time.
little bit too.
I'd do it,
I'm gonna
man.
have to explain it to the insurance company. Like I pushed the button and it didn't work.
They look at, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But so the technology's coming at us quick. So much that I've been telling salespeople for the last few years, and they get pissed off at me every time. But I've been telling them that it's like, hey, your job's on the line because robots are coming to replace you. ClickFunnels, sales pages, and all this other stuff. So right now
Artificial
we're actually,
intelligence.
Yeah, artificial intelligence, right? There's already sales CRMs that are better than your average sales guy anyway. That's artificial intelligence in the chatbot
Yeah.
range, right? And so, and most people are doing business like, Amazon's #1 retailer. So most people are used to doing text and video business anyway, right? Like text, email, all that. And so we've been teaching them to sell these funnels. Like, hey man, they're going to replace you. You might as well sell your replacement on your way out, right? But I know that technology's coming quick, and you guys are on the forefront of technology too. I mean, obviously you have these really cool wrist top wearable technologies that's on there. It's especially yours. It's like basically looks like you have an iPhone or something strapped to your arm there. And so tell us a little bit about like where you see the technology going with these, because I really am intrigued with what you guys have discovered here.
Yeah, so Ken, now check this out. The world's most dangerous man in the world, go and punch your face in an octagon.
No, not punch, break ankles.
Yeah, ligament manipulation.
Ligament manipulation.
But now owns a technology company. So he and I are partners with a couple other partners in a technology company in wearables. Because dude, wearable technology is our tomorrow. It's happening. Like it or not, this cell phone sitting in our pocket is yesterday's flip phone.
It's not sitting in our pocket. We had to pull it out of our pocket and sit it here because it's inconvenient.
Hey, on the bottom, you need to paraphrase the things that we say. Like, dude means friend.
Friend.
It's not geriatric. Anyway. Okay, so anyway, I was telling Ken, I said, the market is going to wearable technology. That's where it's going. How can we get in on this early? So now we're in. And this one, what we find is it's only viable if your wearable can do everything that your cell phone can do.
That's true. That is a big hindrance if it's...
Big hindrance.
Because you still need that too. You
still
can't let
need
it
it.
go. You got the attachment
Well, everybody has
syndrome.
smartphones or smartwatches now, but they tether it,
Yep.
right? They tether it. Ours that we're coming out with, super exciting because you can put your own SIM card in it. You can put your own SIM card in, virtually any SIM card, so it's unlocked. So it's an unlocked phone that you wear. But ours are different. They're not just smartwatches. We call them smartwatches, but we brand them wrist tops. Kind of like a desktop or wrist top. The question is why? It's because of the processing power that it has. The horsepower in these things are significant, along with a ton of storage, because it does have a camera. It can do video, picture, Bluetooth, wireless, anything and
It's
everything
like something
that
out
this
of a
can
James
do.
Bond movie.
Yeah.
It's like you
Right.
can
And I can
video
record your
people.
conversation
Yeah,
and you don't know.
can surf the internet, you know. I remember I watched this movie, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I watched it, and I remember the year. I watched this movie in 2010, and the dude pulls up, and I think it was a Tom Cruise movie, but it's not Minority Report, but the dude pulls up, he's on the run from the cops, he goes to a phone booth, and instead of a phone booth, for those of you that are young, phone booths where before you had cell phones, they used to have to go.
Superman, you know, remember
Yeah,
Superman?
there you go. And so he goes to this phone booth, and it says MSN, and so he like gets on the internet inside this phone booth, and now this is prior to the iPhone revolution that we've had and stuff like that, and I thought, wow, that's really going to be the future, because it was an older movie I had watched back then, and I thought, wow, that's really going to be the future, but turns out, just like 1984, they had them standing in front of TV screens, but turns out it's none of that. It's going to be like right here.
It's happening. It's happening. What we did with one of our models, as you can see with this one, has a bigger footprint.
Show that to the, just like hold it up to the camera real good there. So, I mean, it's a good size. Like
It's good size because most of us have bigger fingers, right? It's hard. It's hard to get around on the smartphones, and most people find that is problematic. So we have a bigger one, and it's 2.5 inches in size. So anyway, I think that that's going to help with usability.
You think about that. You look at that now, right? We you know, you remember how these used to look, right? They were
Exactly.
real
They used to be in a
generic.
bag.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this is, so you know, these are just like starting out. Like when the cell phones first came out, you had a big old box, and they made it a little smaller. Then you got the flip phones, they don't have as much storage, and now you got the ones that are actually thin. You can put them in your pocket. You can carry them around pretty easily. So this is going to be moving the same way. It's going to be light years too. It's just going to, once it starts, it's going to roll out. But when you look at that, the vision that I have with that is that the same way that people wear jewelry, you know, bracelets, necklaces, you know, fancy watches, I think this is going to become part of something like that with the designs, the way they're going to be designed, the way they're going to look. They're going to look like something you can wear out with either a nice suit or with just sporty, you know, sport day. You'll have different types of of designs that you can wear with different things, and it'll be just like wearing jewelry because it's going to have to be bigger. It will. And when you talk about the bigger fingers, it's one of those things. It's so easily corrected. You know, what I mean, you just get a little stencil and it slides into the side. You pull it out and you can do whatever you need if you have too big a finger. So any of the stuff that comes up like that, because it's just the beginning, it's going to be fun to see how it develops as it moves on, because it will. It's going to develop.
You have one on your hand too, right?
Yes, I do. This one is more of a
So yours is a
sport
little
watch.
bit smaller,
Yeah.
so it's like a sportier version. And you say it's
Yeah.
waterproof and everything?
Yes.
It is.
Yep.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's band-
you can
you change
surf the
bands.
internet on this. You can answer the
Yeah.
phone on this. You can check your email, everything.
Facebook, Twitter,
Facebook, Twitter,
everything, email.
And so, what's intriguing about the fact that you guys got your hands on this is that it's. You said unlocked earlier, and a lot of people probably didn't put two and two together. But that means that could go Apple or Samsung. So, like, however you want to plug into it, whatever. Not necessarily the iOS, but whatever
Right.
you can put the SIM card in.
It's an
from
OS.
whatever
It's
network, yeah.
Android. It is Android. Yeah, so it's Android, and you can put virtually any carrier into it. Yeah, their SIM card. So you go to Walmart, go back there to the prepaid section, and grab any of them.
Well, even like your experience overseas. You know, tell them about that.
Yeah, so I was in Myanmar teaching an entrepreneur course, and I had one cell phone, my S7, to take pictures because it takes beautiful pictures, but I had to buy a throwaway phone, and the throwaway phone was for one purpose. That's my internet, to get around, GPS, that sort of thing. And the problem is I had to buy a second phone. And it had to be a specific phone that would take a SIM card for that area. And it had to be an unlocked phone at that. So it was all these barriers to entry, but I found one, I did that, and I lost the thing. It solves a lot of problems for me. So I can take this with me. One, I'm not going to lose it because it's strapped to my wrist. But I can put my own SIM card into it, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
And so you could put, you go to Canada, whatever country, you buy a SIM card, you got, let's say, the Apple AirPods, which are wireless or some sort of wireless
Yeah,
Bluetooth.
you got
and
it.
you've literally got a phone
Bluetooth
that
it.
you never even have to look at. Before long, I think what's going to happen is we're going to have glasses that go along with it too,
that'd
so
be
that
cool. They already have those.
we have the whole. Yeah, they already.
Yeah.
They're just not that good
Right,
yet.
right.
Right.
With the
They look
wrist
like you're
stops have come
blind.
a lot further. Yeah.
You got blind glasses on.
You like at least they don't look like the dude from Star Trek. Remember that he had like the little
Yeah.
blinds things on
Dude, I
there.
grew up in the 80s. That's,
Yeah.
that's okay. Well, what's interesting is what we're used to this. We're used to pulling it out and doing this, touching a big screen. This is the next step to what you're talking about, wearables. You still get a screen. You still can flip through your different apps. You can still open, you can download anything that's on the Google Play, just download anything you want. And once you have it downloaded, it's yours. So anything and everything. You can watch movies off of this. You can do anything. But a lot of people are like, well, why would I want a phone right here? Why would I want to be talking like this? You don't if you don't want to.
The Bluetooth,
Bluetooth
yeah.
it, as you just referred to.
There was a time when if you wore a Bluetooth, people were like, "This guy," you know what I mean? Like, get that thing off your ear, right?
What do you think you're cool?
Yeah, exactly. But now they've made them cool enough and indiscreet. They're not like
Right.
fast food waitress type of headsets that you have, and like AirPods. You can put AirPods in,
Right.
and people hardly even notice that you have them. Those are. I buy a lot of technology stuff because I'm a tech junkie. That's why I like what you guys have here. But I think that the Apple AirPods is like the coolest invention of 2017, right? Like those things where they don't fall out, and there's
Nope.
no cord, man. That was like a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And so I could imagine
Do you
pairing
use them
those
now?
up.
Do you
Yes,
use them
every
now?
day.
And do you use them to take phone calls?
Yes, every
Yeah.
day.
And
I use them for my hangouts for when we do Skype trainings
You
and stuff
do?
like that. I use them for that too.
So on the people on the other side, how do they feel your audio is?
But they say perfect. That's
See,
why
I've
I'm
heard the
using it.
same
I
thing.
I haven't
Right.
had any complaints. However, I had the Plantronic stuff for forever, and people would complain about it. Right? You go spend $90 on the
Yeah,
Plantronic
yeah,
thing, which
yeah.
was top of the game. But the AirPods changed everything. Matter of fact, when I used to do, so I have a podcast called the Hardcore Closer Podcast, and when I used to do it prior to the AirPods, I had a Yeti mic.
Yeah.
And then I had Beats by Dre
Sure.
headphones
And
that I
you
used that
switched
were
now?
wireless. Now
Are you
I
kidding
just
me?
use the AirPods.
Are
I
you
don't even
kidding
use the
me?
Yeti mic anymore. And I've been that way for 6 months, or at least since they came out with the AirPods. I was one
Yeah.
of the first persons to put the order in, and because I'm a total Apple junkie. And I have not one single person said, you know, hey, your podcast doesn't sound. And I have a producer on the podcast that does it all, and I haven't even told him that I stopped using the Yeti yet. Like, it's just none of his business, right?
Well, if you don't know
He's
the
going to chop
difference,
this one up. So Robert, hey, congratulations. Now you know, fucker.
So there it is. Now you know.
Now you know. Unless you don't really watch these episodes, in which you won't know, so I'll know if you message me or not whether you really watch these days.
Or he cuts it out.
Well, yeah, that's really cool. I could see how, I mean, we really are getting plugged into like what I call the matrix. So within a few years, we'll have glasses, earphones, and probably the glasses, the ones they make now, already have the earphones attached to them, you know, where they're like part of the actual glasses. And these wrist top watches, I mean, so long to this, and
Right.
and that really the only reason that you would have something like, because here's what I believe happens. So this shifts to this shifts to the wrist top,
That's-
right?
yes.
So the things that you used to could only do on one of these are gone, right? I
Right.
believe that puts this out of business unless you're somebody like Pat, who's a coder.
Right,
Unless
right,
you're
right.
just like in the 70s, you didn't own a mainframe computer unless you were a computer person,
Yeah.
right? And so you didn't have one in
Or
your house.
editing videos or whatever, right?
So I
right.
think that you just won't
Utilities.
carry these on the road with you. You won't have them in your house, like the desktops too. I think even companies, what will happen is, you remember like the government used to issue Blackberries. I imagine you'll come in and they'll give you that, which is now on this size. And if you think about it, most people are better at typing with their thumbs than they
Yep,
are with
yep,
their
yep.
fingers anyway. And then that'll force the habit to shift, to get used to scrolling on a different size watch and stuff, because all the screens have gotten smaller.
So I was at HubSpot's.
Oh man, my friends went there. They said that was so awesome.
Great. So they're in Boston.
They're on top of it too, man.
They really are, and I love some of the speakers they brought in. Some of them didn't have big names, but it didn't matter about their name. It
They're
mattered.
smart.
It mattered about the content they were delivering
Right.
to us, and what they're projecting, what some of these speakers were projecting, which I fully agree with, which is, and they're all going to this right now, is voice. They're saying that upwards of 60% of our browsing in just a matter of 2 years will be voice driven. We're not used to it now. We're not saying, hey Siri, we're not saying, you know, okay Google, and then triggering, you know, it to do things, or the different, like Amazon has theirs, whatever. Alexa. They are pumping a ton of money into this now, because it's all going to be voice commands that will be driving it. That's what's going to be driving this. It'll all be voice.
Well, my kids, so my 5 and 6 year old, they're sharp little dudes. They got iPads, and that's what they do. They go on YouTube Kids, and they go find, you know,
They're
chameleon
doing it
videos.
already?
Yeah, so that's what because they can't type yet, because they can read some words, but they're not to that level yet, because Jackson, my oldest, is just in kindergarten for 2 months now. He's in kindergarten. So, but that they already know to do that. Boom, and so you think they've been conditioned since they were 3 years old. They've been on these things doing that. So by the time that and that's way more convenient. By the time they learn to type, it'll be that way. So I totally see that happening, man, 100%.
Yeah, everyone's going about that now. So everything is bots. We just saw IBM or Intel. It's Intel. But Bing, watch Bing. Bing is putting a ton of money into voice.
Well, Ken, don't you worry. We already got it figured out. So we know that if you put in Alexa and Siri and all these things, and they're just trying to listen to us so they can sell us more stuff or spy on us or whatever, right?
Thank you.
But as a salesman, I already got this figured out. So it's like there's going to be a period of time where you like turn your TV on with me on there, or your phone on with me on there, and the first things I'm going to say is, Alexis, buy my stuff, right? Alexis, purchase Ryan's program.
Right.
Thank you, Ryan. Purchasing now. Wait, what in the hell, Ryan? The people watching TV. I ain't even got to sell shit to nobody anymore. I'm selling it to Alexa. My best customer is Amazon.
Oh man! Thank you very much.
Alexa, order wrist top watch immediately.
Well, I'll tell you, the companies that position themselves to capitalize on those voice commands for sales is where the money's going to be made. They were saying that over and over again at these conferences over there. So
I believe it.
inbound was voice. And with AI, artificial intelligence, integrated with the bots that you were talking about. Everything is going to bots. And Ryan, dude, I'm telling you, bro, what you just said a little while ago was spot on. today's sales will be replaced by artificial intelligence because it will hone in on personas. It will hone in on what you need to hear
Yep.
and how you need to hear it. And that's how things are going to be sold.
And guess what?
And
it
listen-
won't get a cocaine problem. It won't not show up at work. You hope it will answer. Yeah, it will answer the phone at any
So,
time.
I get all the-
Bro means you guys are close friends. Just want to make sure we got that under there.
But I mean, think about like salespeople. So I've been telling the mortgage guys this forever, and they get pissed at me. But I'm like, you guys make, 150 to $250,000. Like a shitty loan officer makes 80 grand a year, right? Like a horrible one makes 80 grand a year. And I'm like, you think about it. Who are the greediest people on the planet? Banks, right? And bankers, not loan officers, but bankers, the people y'all work for. And like they're trying to figure out a way to cut y'all out because there's trillions of dollars in commissions
Right.
you guys are
Well,
scraping
I
from the
would like to
marketplace.
say
happening.
promoters are just as close.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fight promoters are pretty close.
Yeah. So you're transitioning them to.
Well, I'm like, I think the mortgage broker of the future is the person that owns the robots, right?
Right.
Like you're no longer the loan
Yes.
officer, you're the person that
You
owns
got
them.
it.
So I'm teaching them how to build their own robots now because when shit hits the fan and all the other, because see, I was in 2008, I was in the mortgage business, right? And the mortgage business crashed in 2008. And in 2009 was like the worst year on record. But I did 183 loans that year and made 300 grand. While everybody was leaving the industry, like say you're a loan officer and you're leaving, I'd be like, Ken, what you gonna do with your real estate agents?
So there's a vacuum. and you
And
feel
so
the-
like, dude, as everybody was leaving, I was hitting them up for all their business. And so what I'm teaching my guys is because there's already Rocket Mortgage with Quicken, there's already Mello with Loan Depot, so there's already these technologies that are saying you don't have to talk to a loan officer, you just, like hell, even with Bank of America, I bought the McLaren, that's the first time that I talked to them. I did it all through a computer, $150,000 loan that I took through them all
Is
through
that-
through my phone, not even a computer.
Is that the one you're having problems with, though?
Yes, I am actually, but that's the dealership's fault.
You didn't talk to anybody.
But so like it's already happening, and so what I'm teaching my guys is, hey, when the mass exodus happens again, make sure you scoop their
Boom.
business up from them, and make sure you have the robots
Spot
in place.
on.
Protect yourself.
Right. That's spot on.
Yep. So, well, I guess that's it. Unless you got anything you want to add, Mr. Silence, today. We didn't have a mic for
No
Pat, so
mic.
we're just like sit over there and run.
I took your
Google when we
mic.
need you.
Something tells me he's okay with that.
We went and paid a real famous internet marketer 30 grand to go spend the day with them and learn some stuff from them, like a consulting day. And earlier this year, and when I called the guy and paid him the money, I said, hey, I want to bring Pat. It's cool. He doesn't talk, right? So you just sit there and take notes, and I'll deal with talking to him where to go. And he goes, I normally don't let anybody else. Like, he don't talk, man. Because, usually you bring somebody with you, and then that person doesn't shut up. And you
He's
don't get
Silent
a good
Bob.
time, right? He is. That's what I said. I was like, he's just like Silent Bob. And at the end of the day, he's like, you really don't talk too much. I thought you were full of shit, but you really haven't said like 3 words. So, well,
the dumbest person in the room.
Right. That's the smartest place to be.
better to be quiet and they think you're dumb than open your mouth
Yeah.
and remove all doubt.
Yeah. I think that's my problem. I think people know exactly where I am.
Well, I think we've had a good conversation today, though, man. I think that we've talked about some entertaining stuff. I've been seeing them dudes back there rolling, laughing at us, so we've done pretty good. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us today, man.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's always cool to hang out with your heroes, man. As a young dude, I looked up to you. You know what I mean? I cheered for you every time to beat Tito's ass. Man. So,
Me too.
we were on the same team.
Yeah. The funny thing is I hear this all the time, and it's something that I really try to pride myself on, is a lot of people say don't meet your heroes. They will always let you down. And that's something I pride myself on when I go out. I want to make sure that anybody that meets me gets a good experience. Even if I'm in a bad mood, they only meet me one time. And so what they meet and what they see is what they're going to remember. So it's important to me. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's it's funny you say that. There's actually an article on hardcorecloser.com called Why You Should Never Meet Your Heroes in Real Life, and I talk about, you find out that they're soft in the middle and they got bad breath, or they didn't fix their hair right or whatever. And like I said, though, earlier in the show, when you showed up this morning, it's like, oh, I still got it. You know what I mean? Like, it's rare because, you know, a lot of people, you meet your hero and you're really disappointed. But I'm that same way, Ken. I think when someone meets me, you know, that I've been a mentor or whatever, they come to our live events, I make sure that I'm always on my A game and everything else so that they don't have that bad experience.
My father said to me one time, which sticks with me ever since, and this was in the beginning. We were sitting at dinner, someone came up, and I remember I was eating, and he came up, and I kind of wasn't rude to him, but was kind of like, hey, can we, you know, after I get done? And my father said, listen, he said, I get it. You signed 100 autographs, maybe 1,000 autographs. This is the first time this person has seen you. So he doesn't know what you've been through. So he's going to go back and tell his friend, okay? So say you do it again somewhere else, where it's like, I don't got time, so there's 10 of them you don't do. Well, those 10 people are going to go tell 10 friends. So if you do this for 20 years, it's going to be now 50-50 of people that saying he's a jerk, he's no good. So I have always made it a point now that whether it's I'm at dinner, or whether with I'm family or whatever it is, that I take a moment, because it's only a moment, to be able to sign and give a person a good experience.
You do that.
Yes.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Des, thank you for
Pleasure.
obviously introducing me to your business partner, Ken, and
We're looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, we're going to do some cool stuff, man. I'm all
Straight
about
up.
technology too. So, well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. You can catch the replays of all the other shows. Hey, what is our website address now? Is it AmericanEntourage.com? Well, how easy is that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it's rare that you get the domain that you want these days, right? He was like, is it theamericanentourage.org? Right? And so it looks like we scored on this one, ladies and gentlemen. So head over to AmericanEntourage.com, and we'll see you next week. Later.
Peace.